Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SQUPCAST. I am Adam from SquaredUp, and today we've got the big boss on with us. We've got Richard Benwell. Hey, Rich.
Hey, Adam. Great to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Really interesting topic, aligned with some new feature news, as we like to try and do with SQUPCAST. So we're talking today all about sort of what makes SquaredUp smart. So I think maybe a good place to start would be, obviously we're talking about dashboards, and I can see we've already got a screen share with a nice juicy demo sort of lined up.
Can't wait to get into the demo. Yeah,
great. How about we start with kind of let's frame the problem. What's an unsmart dashboard? Or maybe we just say dumb, just to keep it simple.
Yeah, okay, dumb dashboards. Yeah, exactly. Talking about dashboards, and dashboards have been hot for a while now, right? I was looking back at when we started back in 2011. That was when D3JS came onto the scene, V2. So D3JS is a web-based data visualization package that allows you to do some really cool things with visualization on the web. And sort of prior to that, you had like the first gen of dashboards, sort of some crummy dashboards stuck in some sort of Windows app, that weren't really dashboards. They were just a sort of report, and maybe you could export it as a PDF. And then we had D3JS appear. Suddenly, all these visualizations were enabled in the web, and you had the arrival of sort of modern dashboarding. I actually was just looking this up. Power BI was launched in 2011 as well. So the same year SquaredUp launched, we had Power BI and D3JS sort of really coming onto the scene. And then so since then, the last 10 years or so, dashboards have become not just a new wowy thing, but something we almost sort of expect to see regularly. Obviously Grafana then, I think it was a few years after 2011, as a fork of Kibana. We've had sort of Tableau on the scene. So you had this sort of second generation of dashboards, which is let's call them sort of vanilla dashboards. They do data visualization really well, and we're all used to that now. But that's all they did, was just that sort of data visualization. And so with many other dashboarding tools, this sort of second generation of dashboarding tools, you've now got to this point where dashboards are everywhere. You have too many dashboards. It sounds like the sort of virtualization in the early days of virtualization. It's like, wow, we can create virtual machines left, right, and center. And then fast forward a few years, like, oh my goodness, we've got virtual machines left, right, and center. Obviously now you've got the same with containers. So you've got dashboards just everywhere, a sea of dashboards on top of a sea of data. So you've got this idea of being able to visualize that data, but it's it's a mess. It's really hard to find that. And so you've now got that sort of modern sort of rhetoric around dashboards are dead. Dashboards are dead because they're too static, they're too limited, they're too noisy. You can't tell from something whether I need to take action or not. So we've got too many dashboards, too much data visualization. So I think they're the sort of second generation of dashboards were exciting from the level of visualization capability you had, but are dumb from the point of view of their just visualization, right? So you're just ending up visualizing too much data without structure, so sort of unstructured. So that really kind of then sort of leads us to the what makes SquaredUp smart, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone hasn't read it, there's the dashboards are dead. Sort of the first big post that was sort of popularized was maybe 4 years ago now by Taylor Brownlow. I think there was a follow-up last year, and that was exactly sort of stating that case that people always want more out of their tools, right? The needs always change, and like, great, we can give people dashboards and show them the answers, but now they want to click on them and they want to do stuff with them and get their own data out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we hear it enough at SquaredUp. Everyone loves a dashboard, right? People love the data visualization, not to some extent because of the visualization itself, but mainly because they get to see something that they otherwise didn't know about, or an insight they didn't have, and so it displayed just simply. So everyone loves a dashboard, which is great. But yeah, now they've got dashboards, they want more from them. They want to drill into that data. And Taylor works for, I think, a UK-based business called Count, who are doing some pretty cool stuff with trying to make more like a data canvas for sort of AI use cases. So there's definitely this sort of need to say, okay, we don't want just these static dashboards where a user likes what they see, but then wants a change to what they see, and so they've got to do an iteration of like asking for an additional tile to be added. Actually, Adam, we were on just a call a second ago where we were looking at a dashboard and we wanted an additional column, so we wanted to add that in. So that happens a lot. In the BI world, you've got this back and forth and constant sort of iteration of dashboards, and in the sort of engineering and IT world, you typically have quite still a separation between the folks who sort of build the monitoring, build the observability, and build the dashboarding, and the folks who consume it. The folks who consume it don't live in that world, but they need the answers. So very much like BI, where the folks that consume the dashboards aren't necessarily the folks that sort of build them, and we need to sort of close that gap and make sure that the consumers of this data have much more sort of self-service access to the insights they need.
Part of that challenge as well is just tools are either too generic or far too specific. They're great at one thing, or they're kind of average at everything, and you need expertise just to be able to plug Power BI into something.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and obviously, really touches on what we do at SquaredUp, which is we plug into all data. So we're not we are that visualization layer, that dashboarding on top, which people know us for. Many tools, especially since things like D3.js appeared on the scene, many tools now have pretty good dashboards baked in, and they are often highly structured. You can normally sort of drill down into that. If you're in Salesforce, let's say, right, you can get a report and you can sort of drill down into that. If you're in, I don't know, a monitoring tool like Dynatrace or Datadog, you can sort of drill into one of their dashboards. But when you have, there is a need for that single pane of glass, there's a need for sort of a higher level dashboarding reporting layer, and tools like Power BI and so on actually are quite sort of limited in terms of then how you can interrogate that data. You end up just with that sprawl of dashboards. And obviously in the IT space, you get that a lot with users of Grafana dashboards, where you end up with a dashboard every time you need to get some data out of a tool like Prometheus, and then you end up with this sprawl of dashboards.
Yeah, I think some of the built-in dashboards also cause a bit of a struggle, because again, they're like the super specific dashboard, right? They're only designed to show data from that tool. And they're not designed to show you how you want it. They're designed to show it how the developer wants to show you it. And
typically within these, within a tool, monitoring tool, the dashboarding is just a small team, little side feature, and what they're really focused on is collecting that data, storing it, making sure you can do that at scale, and with performance. And the actual visualization layer is that's just a UI feature we have. Whereas obviously, companies like Microsoft with Power BI, Tableau, Grafana, SquaredUp focus on building that presentation there.
Yeah, we've definitely, I guess, sort of seen it firsthand when we go to events like Microsoft Ignite or AWS reInvent, and 8-10 years ago, we were cool on the expo floor because we were the only ones showing an awesome dashboard. No one else does that, and now everyone has a dashboard. So all we have to do is get the bigger Lego, right? That's the only that's the differentiator that we get stuck with at events now. But beyond bigger Lego, so what is it we do differently?
There you go. Yeah, beyond Lego, free Lego with every dashboard. And it's interesting what makes SquaredUp smart. Well, I've just talked about that sort of second generation of dashboards where visualization is taken for granted, but it's now a problem of sort of dashboard sprawl. A lot of those problems I've talked about, we've got many of our customers on this podcast. I don't think our customers would necessarily recognize that problem with SquaredUp, right? I don't think I've got a sprawl of dashboards. I can find the dashboards I need, and I don't have to create a dashboard every time I need some data, because actually dashboard server that we've had on top of Microsoft SCOM has always been highly structured. So we're not just floating ad hoc dashboards. We sit on top of this very structured object model you get with SCOM, which means you can browse your data, you can navigate it. If you've ever installed dashboard server on top of SCOM, just all that data springs to life. You're not sitting there with a SQL prompt in front of you to query the data warehouse. You can now just explore all that data about servers, applications, web tests, and so on. And you can also see it in a structured way with roll up and drill down. So I think starting with a tool like SCOM, where it had that object model in that highly sort of structured environment, has meant that we've always solved it in a slightly different way, and not being just the same as those other dashboarding tools that are sort of vanilla dashboards. So what makes it smart is actually our dashboards are highly structured, and we sit on top of a structured understanding of the data that we're plugging into. We like to say our dashboards understand the data. They don't just visualize the data, they understand the data, right? You're not just drawing a graph. We know that line chart, that graph, is actually describing certain objects, and it has certain data about those objects, which means you can drill down into that chart, you can pivot, you can see other data about that. So I think that's always been a big differentiator with SquaredUp, with Dashboard Server, and now with SquaredUp Cloud, where we're taking kind of all those same concepts, but a truly next gen tool built from the ground up. So the third generation of dashboarding built from the ground up, as cloud-based software, so sort of SaaS software, brilliant modern look and feel, but that structured understanding of data that we've brought with us. So now when you plug into not just Microsoft SCOM, but sort of any tool, including not just even IT and engineering tools, but sort of business tools as well, like Salesforce, we can actually understand the data we're plugging into and give you a highly structured environment with your data visualization, your dashboards. So really ultimately sort of solving that problem that's we've always had with that second generation of dashboards of sort of dashboard sprawl, lack of sort of insights, really, like almost too much data without sort of the understanding. So yeah, that's what makes SquaredUp smart, really, is that we're not just the data visualization. We've always been the data visualization on top of a structured understanding of the data. Within an IT environment, I mean, that's just ridiculously important, right? Not only do you have huge amounts of data, but you've got hugely complex systems. There's just, you can't look at a metrics database, whether it's like the SCOM data warehouse or Prometheus, and sort of sit there with a database view in front of you and understand what's going on. It only makes sense in the context of these nodes running these workloads that are connected and the dependencies like this that rolls up to an end user application here. You can't just sit there in front of that data and get that inside a tool. It has to be mapped onto these things. As humans, we like to think about things. Normally in language we just refer to things. We don't just refer to like numbers and talk about numbers all the time. We talk about customers and applications and servers and so on, and users. And so that's essentially effectively what we do, is we understand the data that's being displayed in the context of things and how those things relate to each other, and that's pretty magical. And as I say, it solves a lot of the problems from that sort of second generation of dashboarding. And when you use dashboards like that are smart, you really get that sense that it's helping you beyond just visualizing the data. It's actually allowing you to understand the data.
I mean, we probably became sort of critically aware of the idea that like the thing isn't just in SCOM anymore, right? The thing's also in your CMDB or another tool or in VMware. And there's 2017, I think we added web API functionality to Dashboard Server because people want to put other things on top, but be able to use that existing context, right? They already have the big object model in SCOM. They want to be able to get the SolarWinds metric for the switch that's already being monitored. They want to be able to pull in the ServiceNow records for a server that's having a problem, that kind of stuff. So the object model that sort of sits behind cloud sort of takes that even further.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to touch on tool sprawl here, which I don't think we're planning to necessarily going into this, but that's a really interesting aspect of it, which is tool sprawl has typically had a sort of negative connotation, like too many tools. I think really actually now with much more sort of dynamic software industry, we want to adopt different tools, based on sort of best of breed selection, whether it's like moving to the cloud, porting workloads, or the monitoring tool you use for this area over here is not going to be the same tool that the engineering team use to track issues. They're going to use something like Jira or something, and the business team are going to use a different tool. So you inevitably end up with these different tools. They all have varying degrees of sort of data visualization and sort of dashboarding. So you need this sort of consistent layer, but you also need to stitch that data together. So it's not necessarily like overcoming a problem of tool sprawl. It's the need to stitch data together to get a more holistic view of your environment. And especially now we're sort of operating not just sort of IT but modern software. You need to consider the users. You need to consider whether that software is delivering for your end customer, and that isn't just looking at the infrastructure or even like one part of that software. It's got to be a holistic view, looking at everything from the business metrics, customer experience, all the way through to the technology. So becoming increasingly important, not just to visualize that data, but stitch it together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, to avoid going too far off piste for the topic, let's get that dashboard blown up and let's have a look at some live demo.
All right. So yeah, hopefully one of the reasons I was invited on your podcast finally was to show off this new map feature that we have in the bottom right that really demonstrates finally some of the smartness behind the dashboards we have. Sort of allows you to visualize really what's going on behind the scenes, and this idea of a highly structured environment, not just a sea of dashboards. So this is a dashboard for our Lego swag store that we run when we go off to events. I'm going to come back to that later. What I just wanted to do is switch over to one of those components. So I'm just going to come down to this account DB workspace. I'll come back to workspaces in a second. I just wanted to start from sort of a low level, actually, just looking at what we mean by sort of our dashboards understand the data they're visualizing. So our dashboards are very easy to use and build dashboards from. But if I just select a data stream here, so I'm looking at sort of the put item latency on an AWS DynamoDB. I select the data I want, which is the latency of put items, and then I get to choose these objects. So this is sort of already where, rather than just a some sort of CloudWatch query prompt plugging into the CloudWatch data, I'm actually able just to pick the data stream I want and then pick the object I want that data about. So when I pick out account DB here, in a couple of clicks, I've now just got that metric that I wanted. I could filter this object list by tags in AWS. I could correlate those objects with maybe a CMDB. So we even sort of choose some CMDB scoping to pick this out. And yeah, that's even at this stage, just that awareness of the objects that the data is describing makes building dashboards really, really easy. You know, I can add on monitoring here, so a sort of a threshold that'll make it go red. And again, that monitoring now is going to be object aware. So when I get an alert about this metric, it's going to know that it's the account DB object that has high put item latency. So really cool just at that level to be object aware and understanding the data we plug into. And you can see here, if I then drill down into that line chart, I don't just get a dashboard, I get to see the data behind the dashboard. So drilling into this, I'm now looking at that DynamoDB that's in AWS. I can see other data, you know, other metrics about that. So I can start to sort of pivot and look at other data. I've got all of sort of the config data about that. And you can see on the bottom right, I've also got a sense of where this object fits into the broader environment and scheme. So I can see that this database is called by a function in AWS there, and it's also monitored by a bunch of things. So I'm going to come back to this sort of view later, but I just wanted to show that even just at a lowest level, when we're plugging into these data sources, we're understanding the data we're plugging into. And again, in an IT environment, software engineering environment, but also in a business environment, you know, we talk about things and need to understand data in sense of things, and it's really important to understand those things and how they relate to each other.
I think so, this experience as well, I think will feel very familiar to our long-term dashboard server customers. Just like pick a metric, pick some objects. You know, in that case, it's all coming from SCOM, very well defined, very well understood by the user. Click on the thing you're interested in, and you get a really comprehensive drill down for that object, everything in context.
Yeah, and I guess a sort of a sneak peek or a teaser. If you're familiar with perspectives in Dashboard Server, they'll be arriving in cloud very soon as well. So we'll hopefully have a future podcast about perspectives in cloud. As you say, Adam, like this is plugged into AWS. It's the same idea that we have plugged into SCOM, that the data is living in AWS. Those entities are all stored and recorded in AWS, but we're putting that data dynamically into SquaredUp. So we're plugged into Azure DevOps as well. So we've got everything we're seeing here in a component sense and a sort of an application performance sense, also available for, say, our CID system. So looking at the automation of our releases and builds. So very flexible. Everything I'm showing here really relates to anything we plug into. So that was the sort of the low level. If I just come back up to that high level Lego swag store, we can then sort of see how that idea of like understanding the data that we're plugged into and being able to construct it not just as a dashboard, but then dashboards within a workspace that can represent some component or some team or something you're concerned about, and those workspaces can also then be connected and roll up. So what we're doing now is jumping right back up to the top. So we were looking at a DynamoDB in a service called account, but like, where does that fit into our entire environment? Like, is it part of a critical application or not? And if there's a latency issue with it, how important is that, and where do I escalate that to? So if I come back up to my my Lego Swag Store again, if you're familiar with Dashboard Server, you'll be familiar with the idea of roll up, and we have that in cloud as well across all of those data sources. So if I just come into our Lego Swag Store overview here, you can see again a map in the bottom right. Now this is not showing the sort of individual objects that we're plugged into the data source. This is a much higher level view. This is showing the health of the overall Lego Swag Store application, which is a workspace here in cloud, and the roll up from the different dashboards that we have in it. So your dashboards are effectively creating your monitors, and your monitors are rolling up to your overall workspace health. So we have an issue with our Lego Swag Store here. You can see we're monitoring cost, and it's used for a demo. So we have a demo data from anywhere here. You can see actually it's also rolling up. Let's just have a quick look. That rolls up to a team that may be sort of monitoring and responsible for this this Lego Swag Store. Let me just unpin those. But if I sort of start to drill down, I can say, well, why is this red? Well, I have some issues with some of the service dependencies. There's a few monitors here. I can see I've got an issue with the API gateway and the account service. So I can put in the account service, and I can expand that further. I can look here and see the account service is monitoring and the account service function in AWS. So there's an issue there. If I just expand that, I should see what the issue is. So we've got an error rate is high for this account service function, but I can then see that I've got some dependencies. So within the account service workspace, we've added a dashboard, and instead of adding in objects from underlying tools, we've added in other workspaces in SquaredUp, so we can build this really nice sort of roll-up picture and map out all of our dependencies. So if I just continue clicking out, we can see the account DB, which is where we were, and we should be able to see metrics, the get item latency, and we expand that, and we finally get to see the account DB, which is where we started. So that now is all pieced together in a lovely map. If I just clean that up, and let's make that sort of hierarchical, we can get a really clear picture of what's going on. So we've started in the Lego Swag Store. You can see that it was dependent on an account service function that had a dependency on the account DB. And if I just expand those out again, and we can get down to that account DB table and link it with the service that's calling it. So a really clear picture of what's going on, where the root cause is. So it's not actually the account service that has the problem, that had a high error rate. It's the fact that there's a high get item latency on the database that it's calling. All of that without any new data. We're just plugging into the existing data, indexing all those sort of objects that data describes, piecing it together as much as we can automatically, allowing you to overlay your own business context, so your dependencies and where it fits within your business to create that sort of full picture. So a lot of smarts going on behind the data visualization, and finally now with this sort of map feature, you can really explore that and sort of get your head around that, and obviously gain insights that you wouldn't get just from looking at those flat dashboards.
And obviously the only way this works is because you have to deploy millions of special servers, like mapping stuff out, right? Like that's how it works, isn't it?
That's the trap question. No, it's not. Yeah, exactly. So what have we had to do to get this? Well, yes, we've modeled out some workspaces here, but we've just plugged into, well, a lot of things on the left here from the high level, but at the low level, just plugging into CloudWatch, and we can do the rest. Set up monitors, set up that roll up. So this is something you could build on day one, pretty much, right? Yeah, and very easy to start plugging in, building those dashboards, building those roll ups, and the map just is sort of automatically created from everything you do within SquaredUp. But you can see here that we just have everything in context. It's highly structured, so we don't just have a sea of dashboards. We have dashboards that are contextually positioned within a workspace and connected to the objects that they're actually dashboarding. So I can drill down into any object in this environment. So again, if I sort of come back to that same object, I can search for the account DB. I should be able to find the low level object that's in AWS that I can drill down into, or that sort of high level workspace or anything in between. But wherever I get to, like the dynamic dashboard here for the account DB, I can then very easily just see where it is in context of the whole application. So come back up here and I should be able to see, yeah, we're in the component account DB. And if I expand out upwards, I'll soon get to see that it's in the Lego Swag store. So as soon as I connect into AWS, I'll be able to start seeing this picture.
That's what I kind of love about the map in general is, you connect to your data because you want to dashboard it. We index everything into the map and you get that sort of the beginnings of what you just started with there, the objects and how they relate to each other. And the first plugin where we saw this working really well was with Azure, where you'd see tenants and subscriptions and resource groups and all the resources and app insights, monitoring apps, and all the lines sort of labeled up nicely so you could understand what really happens. But now that we also put all the things you build in SquaredUp into the map as well, your dashboards and workspaces, and again, all those relationships keep growing. Like you said, there is no, well, like I joked about, there is no like mapping service you have to pay for to deploy or anything. It's just using SquaredUp, building those dashboards, using the health of someone else's dashboard on your own dashboard, right? That is the basics of the rollup, and it just kind of happens without effort, really. Not to give it too hard the sales pitch or the marketing pitch there, but it is bloody good. So.
Yeah, no, I just quickly click through, what you're talking about there. So plug into AWS, just doing a reload, plug into AWS and we'll see, all of the objects indexed in AWS straight away. And as you say, doing that with Azure, doing it with things like VMware is pretty cool, right? So you can sort of see all of the clusters, the nodes, and the workloads that they're running. Doing it with unstructured data is pretty cool as well. So plugging into something like Prometheus, which is just this big sort of time series database, but actually then inferring those objects from the labels in Prometheus and starting then to get a map of your Kubernetes environment just from your Prometheus time series database is pretty awesome as well. So yeah, as you say, you get a lot of that out of the box just by the data sources you plug into, and then you can start adding in your own business context with those dashboards and rollups.
And I mean, in some cases as well, where we've built in some of those smart sort of rules to make the map even cooler. So I mean, you mentioned VMware there. Typically, you're going to be running servers, and for I'd say like data center customers, they're probably running SCOM, and they probably all know about the same entities, right? Like in those cases where there's a VMware virtual machine and a SCOM Windows server, we smush those together. We join them up. You drill into one of those servers, and you'll see the data from all of it, and that's all powered by the map underneath the dashboarding. Yeah,
you'll probably know better than me. Where's a good example of that?
I usually go Sales Web 01, classic demo server. And that should have data showing. I think it's down at the bottom.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So yeah, in that little screenshot there, you saw there were 3 different plugin icons next to the name of that server, because we are getting data from, in this case, Azure, SCOM, and New Relic, I think, for this server. So we're getting health from multiple places. It's running in Azure. It's monitored by SCOM. New Relic is monitoring IIS on this server, and it all just gets pulled together. And then the map is then similarly sort of merged around this correlated object.
Yeah, so 3 objects coming from 3 different data sources, data from those data sources, so Azure, SCOM, maybe some New Relic down there, and then this map should be now a correlated map, right? So any relationships we knew about from Azure are now in the same view as those relationships from New Relic and SCOM. So yeah, if you're familiar with SCOM, you'll sort of recognize some of these objects hanging off the object there. If you're familiar with Azure, you'll recognize something like the resource groups that this server's part of, and so on. Yeah.
So from the we've shown in previous episodes when we launched the sort of organization home view. I don't know if we've actually released the big organization map yet, but
not
again,
yet. It's coming.
Okay. Well, we'll stay clear of that. But behind that map is effectively this health rollup, right? That top level organization home is powered by everything that we just sort of explored there visually. Yeah. It's that ultimate sort of top level rollup. The swag store's red because of all of those relationships that previously were a bit hidden away, but with the new map, you can really get stuck into them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were working up to the level of an application like the Lego Swag Store, but that's just one application on one tech stack. Zooming out to the org home here, we've now got that application, which is our demo one. So it sort of plugs into pretty much anything we can get our hands on. But you can see here that we've got a Parts Unlimited, Microsoft's classic app running on Azure and Azure DevOps. We have the Telescope Shop, which is the demo app for OpenTelemetry. So that's running on Kubernetes infrastructure on AWS, monitored by Prometheus. And then, anything in between, Sales app on-prem running on VMware. So, wherever that data is, plugging into it, structuring it, and rolling it up. So, yeah, that you can see in that map, that roll up, which of course is a nice way to visualize it, but ultimately you end up with just a very, very simple red, amber, green status dashboard for stakeholders to know what's going on right now. But it's not a static dashboard. They can drill in. So any one of these applications I can drill down into and get a better understanding of what's going on.
I've been enjoying the team sharing, I guess the modern, let's call it the third generation version of ASCII art, by trying to expand the map out to make it look like fireworks going off or that kind of stuff. We obviously won't share any of the bloopers from when the map's been getting put together. But I mean, it is such a cool feature just to be able to see very visually where something is in context. Often like the things around it are as important as the data you're looking at for the object. So yeah, the fact that we've surfaced it really neatly and made it pretty cool as well. I think the first time we started demoing Vader in Dashboard Server to people, everybody would go ooh and ah quite a lot as things sort of popped up everywhere. And to me, this is that, but for everything basically.
Yep.
Is there anything else you want to show the good folks?
Oh, that's enough for one episode, isn't it?
Well, maybe I'll finish off with just sort of one last question then. So the next time you get invited on, clearly I have spent the last few months not inviting you on. The next time you get invited on, let's say in a year from now, let's maybe go. We'll see what happens. What's going to be the next big fun feature that's worthy of your presence on the episode?
Well, as I say, I'd hope you feel relaxed about inviting me on all the time when we've got cool stuff to share. That's a good question. I sort of, part of me is going to kind of cringe when I say this, but it's probably true, which is I'd hope I'm back on in a year's time and we'll talk about how we can point some AI at this. So, and sort of show what can be done with that. So, and it is, it's not just like throwing AI out there. This is a really interesting use of an opportunity for Gen AI. You have all of that data in all these different places, like fine, like that's, we're now visualizing that, allow you to get to that. We're putting it into a structured environment. Great. You can see how easy it is to click around and explore that. But you've now just got this amazing repository of knowledge within SquaredUp. You've got, all that data from all those different data sources in a highly structured environment, knowing how it all sits together, names of, tiles, workspaces, applications, their dependencies. You've got an amazing knowledge repository. And, we don't talk about SquaredUp in this way. We talk about it as sort of dashboards, but really with the map sitting behind those dashboards, it really is a knowledge repository, a collection of your knowledge within both existing data sources and that business context on top. So I'm really excited to see what you can do with Gen AI, pointing it at this knowledge base, but it's a real-time operational knowledge base, right? So we've navigated down through a hierarchy, to find out sort of where the problem is. We've looked at a few different dashboards. That is all there really now to be interpreted and summarized. So in the same way as we're all probably playing with Gen AI to summarize, text and speech, to sort of start summarizing content here, I think is going to be really, really interesting. And again, it's all via sort of this data mesh architecture. So we're not having to ingest all this data into one massive data warehouse or data lake in order to sort of run Gen AI on top of that. We can do that with all that data in those different tools. So I'm really excited to see what we'll have coming there. We'll have something coming there very shortly. So hopefully before the year's out, or before so a year from now, we'll be back on this podcast talking about the map from a slightly different angle.
Nice. Well, I very much appreciate your time. It was a good demo despite the audio issues. I think it's great to have such a sort of a good sized audience as well, and see so many sort of familiar customer names on there. So I would encourage everyone watching, if you haven't already, head over to app.squareup.com and get signed up for free. you can start out. And if you've got a technical account manager here, I'm sure they'll be very happy to help you with an enterprise trial. But yeah, let's go ahead and just sort of wrap it up. There's a couple of useful links that I like to finish with. Community Answers has been running almost as long as we have. Community.squaredup.com. It's a great technical resource for questions. We've got a new section called Gists, which is all people just sort of sharing cool things that they're figuring out with the product, how to connect using the web API, plugins, that kind of stuff. If you do have requests for new plugins, new features, you can head to feedback.squaredup.com, and our product managers keep a close eye on that. Otherwise, just drop us an email, SQUPCAST@squaredup.com, and we'll forward them all to Richard for this episode. You get direct response. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks, Rich, for joining us. We'll get you back on very soon. But yeah, it's been good.
Thanks, Adam. I saw a question come in. Do we want to pick that up?
Oh, did we get a question live? Okay, what have we got? Will this make its way towards SquaredUp DS?
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave you to answer that one.
It's a great question. And obviously there's overlap between the two products in terms of what they can do and the concepts. SquaredUp Cloud is absolutely inspired by not just DS, but I guess sort of DS on top of SCOM and an object model. And we, as you say, Adam, we had Vader, Visual Application Discovery and Analysis for SCOM, which really leveraged the, two things, the SCOM object model, but also the ability to grab data on demand via the SCOM agents, which sort of run, netstat and other things to pull that data in. Behind the scenes in Vader, there is actually a full-blown in-memory graph database doing some pretty cool crunching of all that relationships, and then we surface it as a very simple diagram with Vader. So Vader also was definitely an inspiration for what we've done with cloud. What we really do see, though, is cloud being sort of the next generation. It's the it is now the successor to Dashboard Server in terms of some of these capabilities. So, for example, we always wanted to add in VMware discovery into Vader, but then we wanted to add in SolarWinds discovery, and we wanted to make it cloud enabled and so on. And effectively, that's what we're getting with cloud is I think sort of the full potential of those concepts. We're still releasing new Dashboard Server releases all the time with cool new features, but the investment in understanding and mapping out your environment beyond SCOM is absolutely going to be in cloud. So yeah, watch this space for sort of the evolution of this to do some of the discoveries that Vader is so great at doing as well.
It's probably just worth adding to that as well. We do actually have a SquaredUp Cloud Management Pack for SCOM, which we hand out with our EAMX license. So if you have Dashboard Server already, you can basically bring all of those objects, the workspaces and dashboards and monitors that we were just showing in this demo. You can bring all of those into SCOM itself. You can drop them onto your Vader maps and use them in your dashboards, and the health state from cloud appears in SCOM, which is a pretty cool sort of hybrid or sort of like transitional way to approach a move from Dashboard Server to cloud, or sticking with both.
Yeah, really good point. And we're doing more and more just to make Dashboard Server and cloud just sort of work seamlessly together. So you see some news coming out about that over the next few weeks, hopefully. But you're right. So you can leverage cloud back down into DS within Vader. You can do the opposite and pull the SCOM object model and your EAs and so on up into cloud. So we're doing as much as we can to kind of give you that flexibility and a sort of a choice of where to do what and to integrate the two. Going back to like why we're investing in cloud is we were hitting the limits with what SCOM could do in the SCOM object model. So effectively with cloud, we're now running on a full-blown graph database, and that's just giving us the capability now to really do what we always wanted to do with Vader. So unfortunately, pulling more of this down into SCOM would be a hard gig based on the SCOM architecture. But that is absolutely one of the reasons why we wanted to go with cloud and build that capability of that next generation. Really truly that sort of third generation of dashboarding in a brand new product.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Good spot on the question as well. We'll wrap it up for today. We're back in a couple of weeks' time with a fun episode called Mid-Year Madness. We're going to be coming to you with some, let's call it live clips from SQUPCon, our internal company conference. I'm going to be collaring all the engineers to come and talk to me about all their favorite features. We're going to have a few drop-ins from around the business as well. We're going to talk about a few other cool things that SquaredUp's doing at the moment, some of the events we're going to, for example. So check that one out. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Rich.
Thanks, Adam, for having me. And I look forward to the edit where you edit out all of the
audio. Oh, yeah. It'll be slicker than it
sorry about that, folks.
Don't worry. Thanks all.